Hey, it's Caressa.
Hey, it's Maddie.
You're not watching the Disney Channel right now.
You're listening to
Dreadfully Twisted. Hey, we're back.
Dreadfully Twisted.
I didn't like how I said that. Dreadfully Twisted's back again. Dreadfully Twisted's back. Tell your friends, and family. I didn't like how I said that.
It's okay. I feel that way a lot of the time.
I need to, work on how I talk sometimes, I feel like.
Yeah.
Because, one, I feel like I need to talk slower whenever I do my episodes because I talk way too fast. And then, two, I need to pronunciate things better because I don't, because I talk fast, so I just slur everything together. And then, three, I just need to learn how to pronunciate things better in general.
Same.
And I just need to learn how to talk better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're back.
We're trying.
We're trying.
Yes.
Give us credit. Oh, yeah. I never watched the documentary yet.
Watch it.
Did it just come out?
Yeah, it just came out last week or something.
Because I've been seeing a lot of TikToks about it.
Yeah. Oh my god, he looks just like him.
What, Chris Rock's? Oh. That's not his dad.
It's not?
No, that's Gabby Petito's dad.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why do they look similar?
I don't know. That's weird.
That's crazy.
But yeah, so what popped up on the TV was the Gabby Petito documentary. But yeah, that's that case whenever that happened in 2022, right? I was following that case whenever it first happened, and that's whenever I started getting into true crime, not really not getting into true crime, but getting more interested in true crime at that time. That's whenever I started really focusing on it a lot.
I've been seeing a lot of TikToks recently where people think he's still alive for some reason. I keep getting them.
I keep getting those too.
That's crazy because I've seen multiple in the past week.
I got those. And I don't know. I don't know how you feel about mediums, but I also saw somebody that was a TikToker that was a medium, and she was saying that Gabby came across, and then she said that Brian was still alive. But you don't know how accurate that could be. But that I also saw that too.
Definitely could match up. There's so many people.
I mean, from what I've heard, his uncle did his DNA testing or teeth matching to say that it was Brian's teeth because they didn't find all his bones.
Yeah.
So
that's his uncle?
His uncle did it.
So he totally could have been just covering for him and just saying he's dead.
Yeah. That's
I might just hop on the Brian Love's still alive train because
I've kind of been on that train for a little while, but yeah, I want to cover that case, but I feel like it's going to be very heavy and very hard and very so it's one of the ones, that and the Idaho murder case, because that happened the same year, I believe. Yeah, so that's for further down the road.
Yeah. There's a couple really heavy ones that I've been wanting to cover just because I've heard about them multiple times on different documentaries and crime TV shows and TikTok everywhere. And they're just so heavy. I'm just waiting because I don't. It takes a lot of energy to do that research because they're crazy. One of them was the Scream murders. I don't know if the Scream killers.
Yeah, I've heard of those.
Yeah.
I feel with me, whenever I dive into heavy cases, I don't know what this says about me. Maybe it's just my ability to disconnect myself from things. Because I've always been able to disconnect myself from things, even things in my own personal life, with losing my dad and stuff. I'm able to disconnect from it in a way. And I don't know what that says about me, but whenever I do research heavy cases, I kind of just disassociate and disconnect from it, and then that's kind of how I get through it. I don't know, because I'm just I'm not letting myself let this get to me, even though I know it's gonna get to me whenever I talk about that's always how it happens. Whenever I research, I'm oh, I'm fine, I'll be able to talk about this. But whenever I talk about it, I can't. And I just start crying. And it's just why is it so much harder?
I know.
I don't know. That's why you always have to sprinkle in the paranormal stuff to make it light.
It's always the worst when you find out about a case for the first time.
Yeah.
Because, like, it just really, like, and then I'll just be thinking about it after, like, I find out about it, because I'm like, that is, like, terrible and insane.
Yeah. But
I don't know if you heard about the Bianca Devins case, but I don't want to do that.
Is that one of the TikToks you sent me?
Probably. I don't know.
I feel like I just watched a video on that today. I feel like that was one you just sent me.
Right?
No, I don't think I know about that one, but I love her hair.
I know.
Her hair is gorgeous.
Ew, he's disgusting.
Ew, he looks disgusting. Gross.
Nasty.
Okay, so are you ready for this case?
Yes.
Because this one is one of the ones that we were just talking about, how it's heavy. But I have a question for you, though. Have you ever wondered when and how the 911 system started?
No.
Do you know anything about how it started?
No.
Well, you're in for a surprise.
Uh-oh.
If you couldn't tell by that question, it was because of this case that we're going to be talking about today. This case is an infamous and interesting one, but it is very infuriating and a very sad case. Yeah. So buckle in, take a deep breath, and we're going to dive in. So Catherine Susan Kitty... Oh, I need to pronounce that again. Genovese? Hold on. I looked up this video. She was just... You watched me watch it twice. Yeah. Okay, yeah, Genovese. Right. Okay. Was born on July 7th, 1935 in Brooklyn, New York. Again, here I am in the 1930s. I can't get away from that time period. I'm sorry. I'm just like in the world of vintage right now. She was the eldest of 5 children of Italian-American parents, Rachel and Vincent Genovese. Everyone called her Kitty. That was her nickname throughout those... I'm already ruining it. I say I'm going to talk better, but I can't. So throughout this episode, I will call her Kitty. Kitty was raised Catholic, living in a brownstone residence at 29th Street, Johns Place in Park Slope, a western Brooklyn neighborhood populated mainly by families of Italian and Irish heritage. In her teenage years, Kitty attended the all-girl Prospect Heights High School, where she recalled as being self-assured beyond... I can't talk. I give up. It's fine. Okay. Where she recalled as being self-assured beyond her years and having a sunny disposition. During the 1940s and into the 1950s, the Genovese family lived and worked in Brooklyn, New York. In the 1940s, Kitty's father, Vincent, started his own business of supplying coats and aprons to local businesses. It was called the Bay Ridge Coat and Apron Supply Company. He became moderately successful. Kitty was an attractive, outgoing woman who liked Latin American music and loved to dance. A graduate of Brooklyn Prospect Heights High School, that's hard to say, Prospect Heights High School, in 1958. She was also interested in history and politics and could debate on many issues. Quote, I remember that she loved to talk politics and knew a great deal about what was going on, end quote, said her younger brother, Bill. Recently, which he said that recently, I guess, at the time, that, like, this, because I found an article where he said that. Mm-hmm. And then he also said she was a Renaissance woman interested in a lot of different subjects. In 1954, her father and her mom, Rachel, her father, Vincent, and her mom, Rachel, decided to move to New Canaan, Connecticut. The decision came shortly after Rachel had witnessed a shooting near their home. By that time, they had 5 children, the oldest being Kitty, who was 19. She chose to remain behind in New York and stick it out while the rest of her family moved to the suburbs, which is, like, awful because, like, knowing what happens later, her mom witnessed a shooting by their house. Like, that's, like, so upsetting, especially for that time period. I feel like that wasn't, like, often that would happen. So Kitty remained in Brooklyn with her grandparents to prepare for her upcoming marriage. Later that year, the couple wed, but the marriage was annulled near the end of 1954 due to Kitty's sexuality, and she came out as a lesbian. Yeah. Which I'm only, like, that's not... that, and I'm only saying that because that's part of her. I'm not saying that as an aspect that really needs to be talked about, because I feel like a lot of people would be like, oh, well, you know, she was a lesbian or whatever. That doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
like that.
No.
But I'm just saying that's it's her, and she sounds like she would have been like a wonderful person to be friends with, and she sounds like an amazing person, and I feel like I don't know, I feel like I would have been friends with her. It just makes me sad. It's always the good ones too.
I know.
After moving into an apartment in Brooklyn, Kitty worked in clerical jobs, which she found unappealing. Same girl. By the late 1950s, she had accepted a position as a bartender. In August 1961, she was briefly arrested for bookmaking as she had been taking bets on horse races from bar patrons. Kind of funny though, like
yeah.
She and a friend Dee Garineri were fined $50 each, and she lost her job. $50 in 1961 compared to today that would have been $533.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. In 1963, Kitty started dating Mary Ann Zelenko. Kitty held another bartending position at Ev's 11th Hour Bar on Jamaica Avenue and 193rd Street in Hollis, Queens, and was soon managing the bar on behalf of its absentee owner. By working double shifts, she was able to save money, which she intended to use to open an Italian restaurant. The bar was about 5 miles from her apartment, and she drove her red Fiat to the restaurant nearly every night. She worked late, sometimes into the early morning hours. It made her nervous to return to her apartment in the dark, but it was something that could not be avoided. And being a city girl her whole life, Kitty had the typical resiliency and determination of a native New Yorker, which is like awful because like I do that same thing. Like I get scared going like anywhere. Like even if I'm going like home, I'm walking from my car to my house, I still get scared.
I know, same.
So like this whole entire case is my biggest fear or like my biggest nightmare. And it's like awful too because like this also seems like it would be something that's like in like a horror movie. They all do.
Yeah.
She shared her Gardens apartment on Austin Street that was on the second floor of a commercial building with Mary Ann, the person who she was dating, her girlfriend. And Mary Ann later died in 2024 at the age of 85. Approximately 2:30 a.m. on March 13th, 1964, Kitty left the bar that she worked at and began driving home in her red Fiat. While waiting for a traffic light to change on Hoover Avenue, she was spotted by Winston Mosley, who was sitting in his parked car, which was a Chevrolet Corvair. She arrived home around 3:15 in the morning and parked her car at her apartment along the railroad station parking lot, this is like the most horrifying thing, which was only about 20 feet from her door to her apartment. That's as far as it takes me to walk from my car to my house. But the door to her apartment was in an alleyway at the rear of the building. As she walked towards the building, Winston, who had followed her home, exited his vehicle, and he had parked at a corner bus stop on Austin Street. He was armed with a hunting knife as he approached Kitty.
No, Kitty.
So you're gonna hear what happens next. This is where it gets heavy. This next part is kind of graphic, so if you want to skip, I would skip like 30 seconds. There's gonna be another trigger warning in a little bit, so just keep an eye out for that. But here we go. We're gonna go into this. Take a deep breath. Kitty ran towards the front of the building, and Winston ran after her, overtook her, and stabbed her twice in the back. She screamed, "Oh my God, he stabbed me, help me." This part makes me so angry. Several neighbors heard her cry, but only a few of them recognized the sound as a cry for help.
Huh.
This case also, if you ever heard of the bystander effect, this case is the bystander effect.
Yeah.
It's awful. When Robert Moser, one of the neighbors, shouted at the attacker, "Let that girl alone," Mosley ran away, and Kitty slowly made her way toward the rear of the building, seriously injured and out of view of any witnesses. She screamed, and several people in the building heard her screams. Lights went on once again, and some windows opened. Tenants tried to see what was happening from the safety of their apartments. Winston then ran to his white Chevy Corvair at the edge of the railroad parking lot and seemed to drive away. On the 6th floor of the apartment building, Marjorie and Samuel Koshkin witnessed the attack from their window. Quote, "I saw a man hurry to a car under my window," end quote, he said later. Quote, "He left and came back 5 minutes later and was looking around the area. Mr. Koshkin wanted to call the police, but Mrs. Koshkin thought otherwise. She said, 'I didn't let him. I told him there must have been 30 calls already.'"
Wow.
Even if you think somebody already called the police or got the police in any way, it doesn't hurt to report it again.
Exactly.
And I'm not blaming anybody here, but I'm just like, really? And she said this later at the trial.
Mm-hmm.
And I bet she probably felt bad, but like, and I'm not blaming her, but I'm just like, really? I don't know, just call.
Yeah.
Miss Andre Pick, a French girl who lived on the second floor, heard the commotion from her window. I heard a scream for help 3 times, she later told the court. I saw a girl lying on the pavement with a man bending down over her, beating her. Witnesses saw Winston enter his car, drive away, and then he returned 10 minutes later. Shadowing his face with a wide-brimmed hat, he systematically searched the parking lot, the train station, and an apartment complex, all very calmly. Like he was just walking around like nothing happened. Just like, oh. He eventually found Kitty by following the blood trail. She was barely conscious and lying in the hallway at the back of the building where the locked door had prevented her from going inside. Which is awful. Like, I couldn't even imagine, like, oh, you're right there, but your door is locked, so you can't get in. Like, it's... Next part, trigger warning for the R word. If you don't want to hear this, skip ahead. It's very, very quick, though. So... But just letting you know. I'm not going into the detail of it. There probably is... That probably is out there, but I don't want to go into that, so I'm just going to go over it really quickly. Out of the view of the street and of those who may heard or seen any sign of the initial attack, he stabbed her several more times before raping her, stealing $49 from her and running away. The attack spanned approximately a half hour. The knife wounds in Kitty's hand suggested that she attempted to defend herself. He told the cops later that he said to her, this part is graphic and awful. He said, I came back because I knew I'd not finished what I set out to do.
Ew.
I hate you.
Same.
How disgusting can you be? He gets worse.
Oh.
He gets so much worse than you can ever imagine.
Oh no.
Her neighbor and close friend, Sophia Farrar, found her shortly after the second attack and held her in her arms, whispering, help is on the way, until an ambulance arrived. Unfortunately, though, Kitty died of suffocation when the stab wounds let air into her chest, compressing her lungs, and she died on the way to the hospital.
Oh.
Records of the earliest calls to police are unclear, but the calls were not given a high priority. The incident occurred 4 years before New York City implemented the 911 emergency call system. One witness said his father called the police after the first attack and reported that a woman was beat up but got up and was staggering around. A few minutes after the second attack, another witness, Carl Ross, called friends for advice on what to do before calling the police. Just imagine that.
Yeah.
You call your friends before calling the police. I mean, I don't know what I would do in that situation either, but I'm just like, I don't think...
Yeah.
I mean, I guess for the time period, though.
Yeah.
Kitty was picked up by the ambulance at 4:15 a.m., and she died on the way to the hospital. She was buried on March 16th, 1964 in Lakeview Cemetery in New Canaan, Connecticut. Which, this next part, I get that most of the times the significant other is part of the suspect pool. But, like, in this case, there are people saying that a man was attacking her.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Kitty's girlfriend, Mary Ann, was questioned by Detective Mitchell Sang at 7 a.m. on the morning after the murder. She was later interrogated for 6 hours by 2 homicide detectives, John Carroll and Jerry Burns, whose questioning centered on her relationship with Kitty. This was also on the police focus when they questioned the couple's neighbors. Initially, Mary Ann was considered to be a suspect. They literally put her through questioning for 6 hours after her girlfriend was just brutally murdered. And people said a man was attacking. What do you mean?
Literally. That makes me mad.
Great police work here.
Great police work.
On March 19th, 1964, 6 days after the stabbing, Winston was arrested for suspected robbery in Ozone Park after a television set was discovered in the trunk of his car. The car was searched after a local man, Raoul Cleary, became suspicious when he saw Winston removing the television from a neighbor's house. Raoul questioned him, who claimed to be a removal worker. Winston claimed to be a removal worker. After consulting another neighbor, Jack Brown, who confirmed that the homeowners were not moving, Raoul called the police. Jack disabled Winston's car to ensure that he could not leave before police got there. A detective recalled that a white car similar to his had been reported by some witnesses to Kitty's murder. And he informed Detectives Carroll and Sang during questioning he admitted to the murders of Kitty and 2 other women. Wow. Annie Mae Johnson, who had been shot and burned to death in her apartment in South Ozone Park a few weeks earlier. That happened on February 29th, 1964. And a 15-year-old girl, Barbara Kralik, who had been killed in her parents' Springfield Gardens home on July 20th, 1963. I couldn't find too much about theirs. I tried looking, but I couldn't find too much. There's not too much information out there. I do go into it a little bit later, like a little bit about it, but there's not much information. And both of those killings were savage and had involved sexual assault. The trouble was, which I'll go into a little bit later, it was another man named Alvin, the monster, that's his nickname, Mitchell, who was 18, a local gang member, was already in custody for killing Barbara Kralik. He had allegedly also confessed to the teenager's murder, but Mosley was innocent. He hadn't killed... Wait, no, that's not what that says. Mosley was insistent that he had killed them all. So, he was trying to say that he killed 3 of them. But, I don't know. I guess we'll see later. I guess, because I go into that a little bit later, but he's just an awful person. I hate him so much. And he gets worse. Winston Mosley was born in 1935 and was 29 years old at the time he murdered Kitty. He was from Ozone Park, Queens, and worked at Remington Rand as a tab operator in Mount Vernon, nearby Westchester County, preparing the punch cards used at the time mainly for data input for digital computers. Winston was married with 3 children, owned a home, and had no criminal record. Huh. Okay, you're gonna go allegedly kill a 15-year-old when you have 3 kids at home?
Yeah. What a person.
He's not even a person.
No.
He's awful. He's a monster. I don't even know if that even describes him that well.
Gross. I hate him.
He had a slight build, barely 5'8", with thin features and a brooding appearance. He did not seem to be the type of person who committed street muggings or murder, according to some people. Seriously.
Wow.
Seriously. You're gonna say that after he confessed to killing 3 people?
What is wrong with you?
Makes me so angry. While in custody, Winston confessed to killing Kitty. He detailed the attack, corroborating the physical evidence at the scene. He said that his motive for the attack was simply to kill a woman, saying he preferred to kill women because, quote, they were easier and didn't fight back.
Ew. Hate him.
Why?
And this is why we choose the bear. Right.
Bear every time.
Exactly.
Because at least they won't do this to you.
Nope.
If they maul me, it's fine. They're cute.
They don't discriminate. Listen, like that. Yeah. First of all.
They're just like, oh, I'm hungry. I'm going to eat you.
Exactly.
Oh, gosh.
It's not like, I only eat women because they're disgusting and I hate them.
No, he'll eat men too.
Exactly.
Or she, whatever kind of
whatever
gender bear is. I'm not discriminating against the bear. The bear is the nice one.
Honestly, and a bear could literally not even attack you. There's a chance that he could just literally, like, see you and walk away, or, like, just not even see you, period. So definitely the bear.
Yeah, most likely, if a bear sees you, if you just sit still, it'll just walk away.
Yeah.
But if a man sees you and you just sit still, he's going to attack you.
Exactly. Bears don't follow you on the street at night.
Yeah, or get upset when you reject them.
Exactly.
Sorry, just wanted to change.
When you reject them, it just made me laugh.
It's true.
I'm just thinking about, like, a bear being rejected, like, no. I don't want to be with you.
I literally saw... Like, I literally saw a video of someone saying, no, bear, no. And, like, they, like, were, like, disciplining like you would do, like, a dog. And it just walked away. Oh. I'm just like... My heart.
Exactly. 1,000% a bear.
If a bear can understand it, so can men.
Yeah. Exactly.
Get it through your heads. Okay. It's not a diss on all men, just some.
Yes, exactly.
So if you're a man listening, we're not attacking you.
No, just the bad ones.
Most of the time, you're probably a good person.
Yes.
So, we're not talking about you. We're talking about the people we talk about in these cases.
Exactly.
Okay. He also stated that he got up that night around 2 a.m. while his wife was working nights as a registered nurse and drove through Queens to find a victim. Just imagine, your wife's at work, your kids are in bed asleep, and you're like, I'm just going to leave the house to go kill people.
Ugh,
and I couldn't find anything about how old his kids were either.
Yeah.
But being 29, I'm going to assume that his kids were under the age of 10, probably. Maybe a little older than that. I don't know, depending on when he had them. Just like, seriously? Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Winston said he saw Kitty on her way home and followed her to the parking lot before killing her. I said parking lot. I said parking lot.
The fact that I didn't even catch it until after you said something, too.
Wait, you listened to the Dialtov past episode, right? Did you hear me say lie hevel instead of high level?
Yeah.
Didn't even notice.
And then you said, that's like whenever I said stiff as a butterfly.
I said stiff as a feather.
Yeah, butterfly. Where did that come from? I just butchered it even more.
We can go with that. I love that even better. Although, if it's stiff like a butterfly, the butterfly's dead.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I don't want the butterfly to be stiff. Wings are flapping. Okay.
We're so
I meant to say feather, not a butterfly. If it's a butterfly, why it isn't born?
We're unhinged today. I'm sorry. I don't know where this is coming from.
Feather. Not a butterfly.
Okay. Oh, this is not the appropriate time to be laughing about anything. What did you say?
It's a bloopney bitch.
Okay.
Rehinging.
I gotta get rehinged because this next part is not great. Give me a second. Well, I rehinge in this. Okay. In the murder of Annie Mae Johnson, Winston insisted that he shot the victim several times. I shot her in the stomach. I reloaded and shot her again in the stomach, he told cops. But the autopsy on Johnson had listed the cause of death as puncture wounds from a sharp object such as a screwdriver or a file. Based on his confession, the body was exhumed from the cemetery in Moncks Corner, South Carolina, and a second autopsy was performed. Using x-ray equipment borrowed from a South Carolina medical college in Charleston, the coroner found 6 bullets inside Johnson's body. 4 of these bullets were recovered. The finding of the bullets adds a lot of credence to the Winston Mosley's other statements, Queens District Attorney Frank O'Connor told the press. In the murder of 15-year-old Barbara Kralik, there was blood evidence available. No test yet existed that could compare bodily fluids for conclusive DNA identification because it's the 1960s and we didn't have that then. Yeah. Winston, however, was able to supply details that conformed to the existing evidence. Cops were satisfied that they had the right man. Even his own court-appointed attorney, Sidney G. Sparrow, believed him. Quote, I'm convinced Mosley did all 3 of these killings, end quote.
Wow. That should tell you something.
I've never heard of a case where the attorney was like, yep, my client did it.
Yeah, literally.
What? So that has to tell you something right there.
Yeah.
He told reporters this after he met his client for 3 hours in the Kings County psych ward. Quote, there are too many things he knew that only the killer could know, he added. But there was more. He confessed to murdering and sexually assaulting those 2 women and to committing between 30 and 40 burglaries.
Jeez.
Trigger warning.
Wow.
I don't know what to label this trigger warning as. But trigger warning for if you don't like desecration of bodies probably would be the right trigger warning here. Skip 10 seconds. Subsequent psychiatric examinations suggested that Winston was a necrophile. Disgusting.
Gross.
That was supposed to be words. He confessed to other attacks during nighttime expeditions in which he would roam in the streets, searching for victims at random. He said trigger warning, R word, he raped many women, frequently robbing them in the process. He admitted to dozens of burglaries, including the one for which he was arrested when he was caught stealing a television. But it was the sexual assaults that he had detectives interested. The failed attempts of rape, which several women reported, Mosley, it seemed, preferred sex with the dead. Dr. Oscar Diamond, a psychiatrist. Why is it so hard for me right now? From
You can't form words right now.
What is going on? This case is literally breaking me. I'm glitching. I don't know what's going on.
It's like a glitch in the Matrix.
Oh god, okay. Oh my god. Get it together. Psychiatrist from Manhattan State Hospital performed a...
Talking is hard.
Talking is very hard right now. My brain is like, you want to say this instead, even though it's completely wrong. Okay. Dr. Oscar Diamond, a psychiatrist from Manhattan State Hospital, performed a pre-trial psychiatric examination of Winston Mosley. Quote, he told me he got no thrill with live women he raped, end quote, he told court later. Gross.
Ew.
You shouldn't even get satisfaction from that at all. Like,
what is wrong with you?
Ugh. You make me want to puke.
Nasty.
So we're going to go into the trial, which is also... Ugh. Winston was charged with the murder of Kitty Genovese, but was not charged with the other two murders he had admitted to. For the police, a complicating factor was that another man, Alvin Mitchell, had also confessed to the murder of Barbara Kralik. On June 1st, 1967, the New York Court of Appeals found that Winston Mosley should have been able to argue that he was medically insane at the sentencing hearing when the trial court found that he had been legally sane. And the sentence was reduced to life imprisonment. Seriously? You're going to reduce his sentence just because of that? Like, you should just, I don't know, make it worse than that. June 8th, 1964, though he originally pled not guilty, his attorney, Sidney G. Sparrow, changed the plea at the last moment to not guilty by reason of insanity. Since Mosley had already provided detectives with a signed confession, which described exactly how he performed the killing, there were not many other options left for the defense. Many of the details of the murder made public were derived from the written confession, and to plead not guilty to charges seemed ludicrous. Much to the chagrin of the defense team, however, Mosley was pronounced sane by the state psychiatrist. 4 residents of the Gardens neighborhood testified at the trial. One of them was Miss Pick. She said that she saw Kitty lying in the street. The poor girl got up slowly, walking to the parking lot. I heard 2 last screams for help, but I couldn't see her then, she said tearfully. Another resident, Robert Moser, said he yelled at the assailant and then who ran away. I hollered, "Hey, get out of there, what are you doing?" He jumped up and ran like a scared rabbit, took off real quick, he told the court. But it was Mosley himself who provided both drama and revulsion to the packed courtroom. He testified on the morning of June 11th, called to the stand by his own attorney in hope that the jury would see Winston Mosley as insane. Dressed in a neat, short-sleeved white shirt, and speaking in a detached, clear voice, he answered almost every question in an even-handed manner. Sparrow asked his client about previous crimes, and Mosley admitted that he stabbed and killed 15-year-old Barbara Kralik on July 20th, 1963. Mosley also confessed on the stand to the shooting murder of Anne Mae Johnson on February 29th, 1964. He said he shot Annie Johnson repeatedly on the night of February 20th. I intended to kill her, he told the court. I didn't think she was dead, so I shot her again. When he turned her over, Mosley saw that she was dead. Then he said, trigger warning, I decided to rape her without any emotion. He said without any emotion. Then he dragged her body into her home where he set fire to her naked body in her living room. In the Kralik murder, Mosley said he wanted to rape the teenager but was scared away by someone in the house. I looked at her for maybe a few seconds and I put my knife into her. As I was stabbing her, she squirmed free from my grip. I put my hand over her mouth and I stabbed her some more, he said to a hushed courtroom. Just crazy. His attorney was like, I'm gonna call you up as a witness.
Yeah.
For you to plead insanity. Mm-hmm. But he just goes up there and he's like, I did it all.
Yeah.
It reminds me just like, in a way, kind of Pedro Filo.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
where he was like, yep, I killed like this
Yep.
many people, but like he was killing murderers and stuff, but like still crazy.
Yeah.
When it came to the time to describe Kitty Genovese's murder, Mosley said that he went out on the night of March 13th for the purpose of killing someone. Quote, I went out that night intending to kill a woman, he told the court. When I got such a thought, it remained with me regardless of what else I might be thinking, he said. I had a hunting knife that I had taken from a previous burglary and took that with me, he said. Or he added. Mosley said that he followed Kitty from her car in the railroad parking lot to a nearby building where he stabbed her for the first time. I don't really want to read this quote because it's just reiterating it. It's very heavy, but I plunged my knife into her back twice. She fell down. He said he saw lights coming on in the building across the street and then returned to his car to move it. I realized the car was parked where people could see it and me, so I moved it some distance away, he said. Mosley heard some of the tenants of the building yell down at him, but he said he was unconcerned. I had a feeling this man would close his window and go back to sleep, he said to the cops, and sure enough, he did. Which makes me think, if someone did go down there, would he have ran away?
Yeah.
I don't know. On June 11th, the defense and prosecution summed up the case in front of the 11-man, one-woman jury. Sidney Sparrow tried hard to get the jury to accept the not guilty by reason of insanity plea. He tried to make the court understand that Winston Mosley lived a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde existence. By the day, he had a regular job, was married, and had a family, and seemed like any other ordinary citizen. But at night, he turned into, quote, a monster addicted to murder and sexual frenzies, unquote. He said Mosley was a schizophrenic personality and legally insane. Was it sane for him to go on about what he was doing when 10, 20, 30, or 50 people were opening windows and opening and closing doors yelling at him? He asked the jury. No, he was sane. He knew exactly what he was doing. He just thought he could get away with it. That's why he kept going with it. Mm-hmm. He just said it.
Yeah, literally.
Literally. 2 seconds ago.
Yep.
I had a feeling the man would close the door, so I just kept going. Like, what is wrong with you? And you yourself said that, like, he did the murder. So, like, exactly. What are you trying to do here? I know you're trying to do your job, but, like, still. He did it. And he's sane. I promise you. No, like, I feel like if you are an insane person, you want to be like, oh, I'm going to kill somebody and, like, do this to them. I feel like if you are insane, you would do something else.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist. Here I am, like, I don't know, sitting in a chair trying to diagnose this guy. I don't know. There's a term for that, but I can't think of it right now. But the prosecuting attorney, Assistant District Attorney Frank, I don't know how to say his last name, Kashator, was ready. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. It looks right. He said Mosley was a panther, a beast roaming the streets of Queens in the dead of night, he shouted in the courtroom. Judge J. Irwin Shapiro instructed the jury on the insanity plea. Legal sanity means a person who must be held criminally responsible for his conduct unless he has such a defect of reason that he cannot distinguish between right and wrong, he said. And through all the arguments and summations which lasted in the late afternoon of June 11th, 1964, Winston Mosley sat calmly in a seat at the defense table. I hate him.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Jury deliberations began at 4 p.m. at the Queens Supreme Court building, just a few minutes walk from the Austin Street where Kitty, I wrote Catherine for some reason. Why did I do that? Where Kitty was murdered 3 months before. I mean, that is her name, but everybody calls her Kitty. Mm-hmm. Even if you look up, like, anything about it will come up Kitty Genovese. Mosley was found guilty of the murder in the first degree. He stood motionless as he heard the jury announce its decision. He made no outward signs of emotion. When asked by the court clerk his date of birth, he said, I was born on March 2nd, 1935, Manhattan, graduate of high school. I occasionally go out to church. Then court officers took him away. There were about 10 spectators present when the verdict was announced. Most people thought there would not be a verdict until Monday and had left for the weekend. In their absence was the Genovese family. No one from the family had ever visited the courtroom. Quote, none of us went to trial, not even mom or dad, said Bill recently. We tried to protect the family from the publicity, especially mom. We hid the newspaper articles from her, which is so sad.
That is sad.
On Monday, June 15th, 1964, Mosley was brought to Queens County Supreme Court for sentencing. This time, the courtroom was packed with spectators and reporters. The prosecution was allowed to introduce any matters which they deemed relevant to show aggravating circumstances of the defendant's behavior. 4 women testified that Mosley had also attacked them, had beaten one of them, raped another, and robbed all 4. The testimony was graphic and had emotional impact on the jury. Life imprisonment isn't that at all. This monster can live to stalk the streets again, pleaded District Attorney Frank. The jury retired to consider the sentence. A short time later, they announced their decision. Hold on, I need a drink of water. My voice is going out.
You sound like me last week.
It's always around this time that my voice starts to go out. We, the jury, recommend the death penalty, the jury foreman said to the court. The court erupted in loud, spontaneous applause and cheers. Judge Shapiro pounded his gavel to restore order. Quote, "I've never seen anything like this, never, not at such time," said the veteran court officer to reporters. Once the clamor had settled down and people took their seats again, the judge added his own thoughts. Quote, "I don't believe in capital punishment, but when I see this monster, I wouldn't hesitate to pull the switch myself."
Ooh.
Yeah.
Valid.
Right? On June 23rd, Winston Mosley appeared as a defense witness in the trial of Alvin Mitchell for the murder of Barbara Kralik. After being granted immunity from prosecution, he testified that he killed Kralik. The trial produced a hung jury, but Alvin Mitchell was convicted in the second trial. Sorry, I like
Why would that be a hung jury?
I don't know. But it's also crazy that they're like, yeah, sure, you can go ahead and be his, like, a witness for his defense.
Yeah.
After he was just literally convicted himself. What is wrong with you?
The justice system really makes no sense sometimes.
Especially in the 1960s, it seems like. On March 18th, 1968, Winston Mosley escaped from prison while being transported back from Meyer Memorial Hospital in Buffalo, where he had undergone minor surgery for a self-inflicted injury. But the injury is graphic, and I'm not going to go into it. I'm going to let your imagination put this together. He forced a tin can somewhere where it shouldn't go.
What the? Hey then.
And somewhere that shouldn't go.
Yeah. What the heck is wrong
But
with
just
him?
so he can go to the hospital. I don't know. He hit the transporting correctional officer, stole his weapon, and fled to a nearby vacant house owned by a Grand Island couple, Mr. and Mrs. Matthew Kalaga, where he stayed undetected for 3 days. Trigger warning, the R word again. I don't even know how this is even freaking possible. Or why, like, it took them 3 days to find him.
Yeah.
On March 21st, the Kalagas went to check on the house where they were encountered by Mosley. He held them for hostage for more than an hour, binding and gagging Mrs. Kalaga and raping her. He then took the couple's car and fled. He did that in front of her husband. What is wrong with you?
I hate him.
Mosley traveled to Grand Island, where on March 22nd, he broke into another house, held a woman and her daughter hostage for 2 hours before releasing them unharmed. He surrendered to the police shortly afterward and was charged with an escape and kidnapping, to which he pleaded guilty. He was given 2 additional 15-year sentences to run concurrently with his life sentence. No, it should be run after. Not... what? This case makes me so freaking angry. Ugh. In September 1971, Winston participated in the Attica prison riot. Later in the same decade, he obtained... This part is crazy. He's the first person to do this in prison in New York at this time. He obtained a Bachelor of Arts in sociology in prison from a Niagara University.
What the?
How was he able to go to school and get a freaking degree while being in freaking
seriously.
prison for killing 3 people? Like, I know he only got convicted for killing Kitty, but still, he confessed to killing 2 other people, and he did multiple freaking things.
Yep.
But no, yeah, we're gonna let him get his degree. It's cool. What the, like...
What is wrong with him? What is wrong with everybody in this?
During his... Yeah, right? During his first parole hearing, he told the parole board that the notoriety he faced due to his crimes made him a victim, stating, quote, "For a victim outside, it's a one-time or 1 hour or 1 minute affair, but for the person who's caught, it's forever." You're not a victim.
Yeah.
You're not a victim.
Definitely not.
You're a freaking
Psychopath.
awful, off freaking person. At the same time, At the same hearing, Winston claimed he never intended to kill Kitty and that he considered her murder to be a mugging because, quote, people do kill people when they mug sometimes. The board denied his request for parole.
Wow. Oh my god.
What the fuck?
Like, they'd be like, oh, okay, good point.
Like, oh, you're so smart.
Huh? Why?
You know, people just kill people sometimes when they mug them. It's no big deal. I just ended a life of somebody who is amazing and, like, the greatest person whenever I'm an awful, terrible person who doesn't deserve to even be here. But, you know, I killed her. It's fine. What the? Like, I don't understand what his reasoning is for this.
He's crazy.
It gets even crazier. He returned for a parole hearing again on March 13th, 2008, the 44th anniversary of Kitty Genovese's murder. He continued to show little remorse for her murder, and the parole was denied again. Kitty's brother, Vincent, was unaware of the 2008 hearing until he was contacted by reporters from the New York Daily News. He has reportedly never recovered from his sister's murder. This brings back what happened to her, he said. The whole family remembers. Mosley was denied for parole an 18th time in November 2015.
18th? He probably should have given up on, like, the 5th try. Like,
I would have given up on, like, the 3rd try, but that's just me. But he died, finally, on March 28th, 2016.
Goodbye. Hasta la vista.
He was 81.
You shall not be missed.
Rest in distress. He had served 52 years, making him one of the longest serving inmates in the New York State prison system. The murder did not receive much immediate media attention. It took a remark from New York City Police Commissioner Michael J. Murphy to New York Times Metropolitan Editor Abe Rosenthal over lunch. Rosenthal later quoted Murphy as saying, quote, that Queen's story is one for the books, to motivate the Times into publishing an investigative report. The article was written by Martin Gainsbourg and published 2 weeks after the murder, claimed that 38 witnesses saw the murder, but an error reduced the number of witnesses by 1 in the headline. 37 who saw the murder didn't call the police. It had been quoted and reproduced since 1964 with the correct headline of 38 who saw murder didn't call the police. The public view of the story crystallized around a quote from the article, but was unidentified neighbor who saw part of the attack, but deliberately before finally getting another neighbor to call the police, saying, I didn't want to get involved. I'm not going to even comment. No comment.
I'm out of comments because this guy is just... I can't.
Mehdi then saw the story of Kitty Genovese's murder as emblematic of the calliousness or apathy of life in big cities and New York in particular. Science fiction author and cultural provocator Harlan Ellison stated that 38 people watched Kitty Genovese get knifed to death in a New York street. His June 1988 article of the Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction, later reprinted in his book, Harlan's and Ellison's A Watching, referred to the murder as witnessed by 38 neighbors, not one of whom made the slightest effort to save her, to scream at the killer, or even call the police. He cited reports he claims to have read that one man viewing the murder from his third-floor apartment window stated later that he rushed to turn up his radio so he wouldn't hear the woman's screams. How awful is that?
Terrible.
Oh, a girl's just getting murdered outside. Let me turn up my music so I can't hear it. I'm sorry, but that's not okay.
No, definitely not. Literally, what's wrong with you? You're a terrible person.
If you see something, say something. Public reaction to murders happening in the neighborhood supposedly did not change. According to a Times article dated December 27th, 1974, 10 years after Kitty Genovese's murder, 25-year-old Sandra Zoller was beaten to death early Christmas morning in an apartment within a building that overlooked the site of the Genovese attack. Neighbors said again they heard screams and fierce struggles but did nothing. If you see something, hear something, think you hear something, think you said you think you saw something, call the police. Or now, because we live in 2025, text the police if you don't want to call. In an interview on NPR on March 3rd, 2014, Kevin Cook, author of Kitty Genovese, The Murder, The Bystanders, The Crime That Changed America, said, this all is a quote, 38 witnesses, that was the story that came from the police, and that really is what made the story stick. Over the course of many months of research, I wound up finding a document that was a collection of the first interviews. Oddly enough, there were 49 witnesses. I was puzzled by that up until I added the entries themselves, some of them were interviews with 2 or 3 people who lived in the same apartment. I believe that some harried civil servant gave that number to the police commissioner, who gave it to Rosenthal, and it entered the modern history of America after that. Just 2 decades after the murder, the Chicago Tribune began an article titled "Justice in the Wrong Hands" by saying, 20 years later, the same city, a man known in headlines as a subway vigilante and the death wish gunman, shoots 4 teenage boys on a subway, and disturbing numbers of voices express delight. Miss Genovese screamed for more than a half hour. The public reaction is disbelief that law enforcement authorities will protect people against the street crime, and in its display of belief that the rule of force is left. There's some psychological research with this, like I said, with the bystander effect and stuff, and like other things. In his book, Rosenthal asked a series of behavioral scientists to explain why people do or do not help a victim, and sadly he found none could offer an evidence-based answer. How ironic that this same question was answered separately by a non-scientist. When the killer is apprehended, the chief of detectives, Albert Seidman, asked him how he dared to attack a woman in front of so many witnesses, and the psychopath calmly replied, "I knew they wouldn't do anything. People never do." Let's change that.
Yeah.
Let's change that. Please. Psychologist Frances Cherry had suggested the interpretation of the murder as an issue of a bystander intervention is incomplete. She has pointed to additional research such as the Borofsky and Shotland, demonstrating that people, especially at that time, were unlikely to intervene if they believed a man was attacking his wife or girlfriend. She has suggested that the issue might be understood in terms of male-female power relations. The apparent lack of reaction by numerous neighbors reported to have watched the scene or have heard Kitty Genovese's cries for help, although reported prompt research into diffusion of responsibility and the bystander effect. Social psychologists John M. Darley and Bib Latane started this line of research, showing that contrary to common expectations, larger numbers of bystanders decrease the likelihood that someone will step forward and help a victim. The reasons include that the fact that onlookers see that others are not helping either. Feel uncertain about helping others. The reasons include the fact that onlookers see that others are not helping either, that onlookers believe others will know better how to help, and that onlookers feel uncertain about helping while others are watching. The Genovese case thus became a classic feature of social psychology textbooks in the United States and the United Kingdom. In September 2007, American psychologists published an examination of the factual basis of coverage of the Genovese murder in psychology textbooks. The 3 authors concluded that the story was more parable than the fact, largely because of the inaccurate newspaper coverage at the time of the incident. According to authors, despite the absence of evidence, the story continues to inhabit our introductory social psychology textbooks. A survey of 10 leading undergraduate psychology textbooks found that Kitty Genovese's case in all 10 of them, with 8 textbooks suggesting that witnesses watched from their shadows as Genovese was murdered, and 2 textbooks stating that some or most of the witnesses heard but could not see the attack. There were some inaccuracies of the original reports. I'm going to go over that really quickly, and then we'll be done. Sorry, this one is probably a long one. I'm sorry. Mine are always so long. I feel so bad. More recent investigations have questioned that original version of events. A 2004 article in the Times by Jim Rasenberger, published on the 40th anniversary of Kitty Genovese's murder, raised numerous questions about the claims of the original Times article. A 2007 study, confirmed in 2014, found that many of the facts about the murder to be unfounded, stating that there was no evidence for presence of 38 witnesses, or that witnesses observed the murder, or that witnesses remained inactive. After Mosley's death in March of 2016, the Times called their second story flawed, stating, While there are no question about the attack occurred, and that some neighbors ignore cries for help, the portrayal of 38 witnesses as fully aware and unresponsive was erroneous. The article grossly exaggerated the number of witnesses in that they had perceived. None saw the attack in its entirety. Only a few had glimpsed parts of it, or recognized the cries for help. Maybe they thought they heard lovers or drunks quarreling. There were 2 other attacks, not 3, and onward 2 people did call the police. There were 2 attacks, not 3, and afterward 2 people did call the police. A 70-year-old woman ventured out and cradled the dying victim in her arms until they arrived. Miss Genovese died on the way to the hospital. Because of the layout of the apartment building, the fact that the attacks took place in different locations, no witness saw the entire sequence of events. An investigation by police and prosecutors showed that approximately a dozen individuals had heard or seen portions of the attack. Though none saw or were aware of the entire incident, only one witness, Joseph Fink, was aware Genovese was stabbed in the first attack, and only Carl Ross was aware of it in the second attack. Many were entirely unaware that an assault or a homicide had taken place. Some thought what they saw or heard was a domestic quarrel, a drunken brawl of a group of friends leaving the bar when Mosley first approached Genovese. After the initial attack punctured her lungs, leaving her to eventually death from asphyxiation, it is unlikely that Genovese was able to scream at any volume. A 2015 documentary featuring Genovese's brother William discovered that other true crime reporters knew of many problems with the story even in 1964. Immediately after the story broke, WNBC police reporter Danny Meehan discovered many inconsistencies in the original Times article, asking Gansberg why his article failed to reveal that the witnesses did not feel that a murder was happening. Gansberg replied, "It would have ruined the story." Wow. Not wishing to jeopardize his career by attacking a powerful figure like Rosenthal, Meehan kept his findings secret and passed his notes to fellow WNBC reporter Gabe Pressman. As a journalism instructor, Pressman taught a course in which some of his students called Rosenthal and confronted him with the evidence. Rosenthal was irate with his editorial decisions were being questioned by his journalist students, and angrily berated Pressman on a phone call. On October 12, 2016, the Times appended an editor's note to the online version of its 1964 article stating that later reporting by the Times and others have called into question significant elements of this account. New York's radio station WNYC, looking back in 2014, reported on how an iconic murder helped create the 911 system. Confirming PBS report wrote, papers and media outlets ran with the story, and then they also added nearly a dozen books when it came to film. The reporters of the genesis of 911 section noted that up to the late 1960s, there was no centralized number for Up until the late 1960s, there was no centralized number for people to call in case of an emergency. Of the 38 witnesses, the family had little to say. It was shocking, devastating, awful. Our sister could have been saved, Vince said. I don't know who they are. I don't even want to talk to any of them. The witnesses, however, and their failure to take action on the night of March 13th, 1964 will never be forgotten. In the past 4 decades, Catherine's murder had been absorbed in the vast psychological database of human behavioral sense. To be studied, analyzed, picked apart in classrooms, and written about in college textbooks, but the development intends no disrespect for her death. Her case came to symbolize the corruption of modern life, a life in which everyone is too frightened or too selfish to help another person, a life in which the value of humanitarianism had been forgotten, writes Professor Helen Benedict of Columbia University. So, all of that happened just for them to be like, oh, let's have a centralized number for the police.
Yeah.
Because if that was actually, because like back then, you know, like you had to do like the dial, like
yeah,
like, and then like they had to do that every time. So that's why they only
take so long.
Yeah, that's why they only did 3 numbers too, because it took like forever to get to dial a number. Yeah. But yeah, so that is how the 911 system started, because Kitty Genovese was murdered. And unfortunately, I feel like if somebody would have called the police, would have been like, and they were actually able to get through, she could have been saved.
Yeah, me too.
After the first attack. Sorry, that one was heavy.
Poor kitty.
It was really pretty. Let me show you a picture.
And a 15-year-old, that poor baby.
I know, Barbara Kralik. And then Anne Johnson. This was her. She was so pretty.
Aw.
Love her dress.
I know, me too.
And you want to see the awful, awful person who did this to her?
I hate him.
Yeah, I hate him too. So yeah. Thank you for listening to that heavy, heavy case. And if you would like to see the beautiful Kitty Genovese, you can go to our Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Dreadfully Twisted Podcast. We also have a group page on Facebook. It's called Dreadfully Twisted Podcast Discussion Group. And if you want to email us your stories, true crime or paranormal, or recommend cases or topics to cover, you can email us at dreadfullytwistedpodcast@gmail.com, or go to our Reddit group, r// Dreadfully Twisted Pod, or you can go to our Facebook page. You can also DM us, comment on our pictures and stuff, posts and everything. You can also rate the podcast, and if you do, please give us 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars. And you can download, comment on each episode wherever you listen to podcasts on. You can listen to Dreadfully Twisted on Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Samsung Podcast, Amazon Music, Podcast Index, Listen Notes, and YouTube. And lastly, please, please, please share our podcast with your friends and family. That is the only way that we can get the podcast out there, and it really, really helps us and helps us stay relevant in the charts, and it just helps us out, and we just ask of you, please. And we hope you keep listening to us, even though I cannot talk half the time.
Sam?
And please don't be like Winston. He's awful.
Please don't.
And again, if you see something, hear something, say something, please. We love you guys.
We love you.
Stay positive, be kind, and
check on your friends.
Yeah.
Be a good person.
We love you guys.
We love you. Bye.
We'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
A little early there.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm out here. Just kidding. We love you guys. Bye.
Bye.